crumbs. Now the hard part is seeing the crumbs for the clues they are. Sometimes the thing you thought was the most brutal aspect turns out to be the chink in its armor, and she loves disguising her weaknesses as strengths.
If you can fight, fight.
Head north if you can. Hello? Is there anyone out there hearing this?
Help each other.
Mexico City has been declared a complete loss.
Be prepared for anything. Our war has just begun.
We are the hammers, and we are the nails. The world stands upon the precipice of total insanity, and we need you, and we hope you need us, bringing information, news, and as much truth as we can eke out before Mother Nature turns us to crumbs. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, working to become millions of voices singing in unison to bring the sanity back home.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays, midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Did you ever feel that things were not quite right? That everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
downloaded to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Mackie.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you then.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talk Now Radio, listener-supported radio, where no topic is taboo. Brought to you by Revolution Radio, listener-supported radio, where information never sleeps. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man, and joining me today is Trent Goodbody, and we're going to be discussing one of his books titled Freedom from Government, and what to do. It tells what to do with dealing with police and other legal officials. So, Trent, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you just fine, Trent, and I'm glad I can, because I think we had a little trouble connecting at first there.
Yeah, it came down to the wire, I guess, didn't it?
Well, I don't know why it was asking you for Skype credit, but it didn't ask me, so we're on.
Yeah, well, I think you could call other Skype users. I just couldn't dial into the number. I can't call numbers, I guess, or something. It's weird.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you have to have Skype credit to call numbers.
Yeah.
Well, you have to have a Skype phone number.
And probably pay them, too.
Yeah, I do. I pay actually, I pay about $12 a year for my Skype phone number, so it's not that bad.
Yeah, yeah.
But at any rate, like I said, we're here to. I mean, you really caught my attention. I believe it was a YouTube video I've seen of you and some posts I've seen on Facebook that had been posted about some of what you do. Why don't you kind of give everybody a little idea about what got you involved into going in depth into legal affairs, I guess you could call it?
Well, I think it had something to do with the police messing with the wrong guy a long, long time ago.
Kind of like you were being harassed and kind of got tired of it and wanted to know what could be done about it?
Yeah, definitely. Ever since I was a kid, really. I have videos on my YouTube channel from 1993 where I was filming the cops and having interactions with them. And I don't know of anybody that was doing that at the time. There was no YouTube. There was no internet. So
you just kind of wanted evidence of what was going down?
Well, yeah, it's just been something that has intrigued me forever. Where do they get their authority? How are they able to control everyone? And nowadays, we see these crazy videos of dogs getting shot and people getting dragged out of their car and homeless people getting killed and people getting convicted for fishing, and it's crazy. I feel like we are all on this rock together. The government has drawn all these lines on the map saying that this is certain whatever property or whatever, but we're all stuck on this rock together, and we're all brothers and sisters. But they have been so successful at simply dividing us and brainwashing most of us. But I was asleep too. Everybody has. I think it's part of life. You have to go through the awakening process to ascend. And I'm not talking about something that would happen after this life. I'm talking about while you're alive here. So what really set the wheels into motion for me was one day, several years ago, the police came to my house, and I was staying with my parents, and my mom let them in, and I heard the cops coming, so I went and hid in the closet upstairs. I didn't want them to catch me. But what they were there for was a financial obligation. And they came in my house, and they found me in the closet, and I came out with my hands up and stuff like that. They put handcuffs on me, and then upstairs in the bathroom where we were located, they shut the door. This cop jumped around my neck and started trying to strangle me and bring me to the ground after I was in handcuffs. And I was screaming. My mom was on the other side of the door saying, "What are you doing to him in there?" And none of this was on video. And then they go to take me down the stairs, and they push me down the stairs. Then they tell me, stop resisting. Then they pull out the taser and start tasing me for falling down the stairs. And if you ask me, that's just simply unreasonable, excessive. And I've dedicated my life to remedying this situation. It's just, I can't allow it to continue. The other reason why I do this whole thing is because I don't want one day my daughter to get arrested and have to go to jail for not buying health insurance or something crazy like that. And I see that's exactly where we're headed. So,
well, yeah, they recently come out with laws on that, but they're not arresting for it yet. Right now, they're content to get in your pocketbook, but I'm sure that won't last.
When they came out with the driver's license, they never arrested anybody for failing to produce it either. And when the Social Security card came out, it was to be used only for retirement purposes. Now you can't even get a bank account without. You have to have that number for everything. So they always overextend themselves. And
I remember when they started requiring your Social Security to get a job, and that was supposed to be an opt-in, opt-out thing, and now you can't get a job without it.
You know what else? You can't even opt out of Social Security. I know someone that's attempting to do this right now, and they sent him a letter without a signature on it with the Social Security letterhead on it saying, no, you can't opt out. It's impossible. There's no way to do that. And that is unconscionable. You know what I mean? That's if we find out that there's fraud in a contract, shouldn't we be able to nullify the contract?
Well, you would think so. But I doubt you see anybody taking Social Security to court.
Yeah. And I don't know.
What we should do in situations is take some of these people to court more often, and maybe they can end up being held more accountable for what they do.
Well, all these officers that are acting outside, that are violating people's rights, and I don't know if we can get into that later about what a right is or whatever, but they're violating people's rights is what they're doing, and the government has no rights. The government can't tell you what your rights are. The government is not alive. They basically were created by a piece of paper, and what you're dealing with is it's men, and when these men go outside of the boundaries of that piece of paper that dictates, their authority, they're acting outside of their jurisdiction, and they're acting in something called color of law. And the FBI talks about color of law on their website. Basically, it's when someone says that they're an official in an official uniform and proceeds to use that uniform to their advantage to violate someone's rights. So the second they step out of their official capacity by violating someone's rights, they lose their immunity. It's stripped from them. So I know a lot of people say that, oh yeah, there's, they all have immunity. It's useless. But no, when they violate your rights, they step out of that immunity. So
in all honesty, somebody could, when one of these cops is being abusive, beat the crap out of them, and they couldn't do much about it because it'd be under self-defense.
Yeah.
And there's no immunity.
They rely on people not knowing their rights, not even knowing who they are, really.
Well, I know it was on a Facebook post. They had a video not too long ago about a girl that was having some kind of a mental episode, that she was on medication, and she had flipped out, and a cop come out there with his buddies, and he got tired of trying to restrain her and just said, I don't have time for this, and grabbed his gun and shot her.
Wow.
Not even tried to hide it. It was on video, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, I just posted a video on my channel that had a homeless guy sleeping next to a building. This cop comes over, wakes him up, starts kicking him, and then starts beating him. And you can see this pool of blood on the ground, for not waking up fast enough, or, something. I don't even know why. It's just, and then the cop starts saying, that stop grabbing my balls or something like that. And the guy was, he was barely alive. He was in no condition to be fighting anybody. So that is just the ridiculousness of the situation we're in.
Well, I think a good place for us to go was what you were talking about a minute ago. Why don't we discuss what a right is? Because isn't there a difference between a right and a privilege?
Yeah, definitely. The government operates solely with privileges. You have to contract with them. You have to agree to it. So, like I said earlier, they don't have any rights. They cannot give rights. Only living beings can have rights. Only men and women. And if you think about it, we should have more of a, I hate to use the word privilege, but we should have more of a right to, we should have more rights than the fictional entities that are on this planet, or that, that we think exist on this planet, that will never die. And they don't have a soul. They cannot make morally based determinations, because they don't have morals. They have words written on paper that they have to go by. So what I think of a right is, what I think of as a right is, well, the Constitution says a few of them, right? We have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Maybe that's the Declaration of Independence. But They have enumerated some of our rights. In other words, they tell us, you know, they know what our rights are, but they don't give us any rights. They have enumerated some of them on their papers. But I'm working on a new book where I offer nothing but solutions right now, and it's in 3 sections: life, liberty, and property. And those are the 3 main. The Supreme Court has ruled that happiness actually equals property. So
I've
we
heard
have
that on a
those
YouTube video before that that's what they said. I guess it's because having property was supposed to make you happy.
Yeah, I guess so. But, you know, could anybody argue with me? Do I have the right to be alive? Of course. You're right. I have the right to life. So do we all. Nobody has the right to kill someone else. And I have the right to liberty as well. And I'd like to think of the right to liberty, and one of the most fundamental parts of the right to liberty is the freedom of mobility, which includes, you know, I don't like to use the right to travel anymore, because every time a term becomes popular, it becomes taken over and redefined by the government. A good term of that is back in the 60s, I believe, people that were anti-government, and I don't like to call myself anti-government. I'm anti-government corruption. But back in the 60s, they called them conscientious objectors, right? That was kind of like the term they used. And then it was, you know, I've heard conspiracy theorist, and now it's domestic terrorist.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? That's what it's evolved to, and that is just insanity. Because who's the real terrorist? The main thing that I teach is personal responsibility and not doing harm to others. That's the only law. Well, there's a law with 2 parts: it's do no harm and don't have any fraud in your contracts. And when you look at that last part, don't have any fraud in your contracts, you have to go through and evaluate every one of your contracts. And most people are in several contracts that they've just taken on secondhand knowledge that they need to have. For example, the driver's license. Everybody thinks they need to have one to get in the car.
About that one. One of Alex Jones's hosts that works with him interviewed a guy recently that was talking about the fact that not everybody is required to have a license.
Yeah. So who isn't required to have one? Right?
Well, that's what the law would have you believe. You'll go to jail if you get caught driving without one, but that's really unconstitutional according to the original law, that only people conducting business with their car was supposed to be required to have a license, as I understand it.
Yeah, think about the words and the definitions and what I've been talking about already with the conspiracy theorist evolving to domestic terrorist, and you'll begin to understand how it all works. Like, for example, the term driver. What do you think of as a driver? Well, nowadays you would think that anybody that operates a car, operate is another one of those words, but anybody that navigates a car is a driver, right? But according to United States Code, a driver operates a commercial vehicle, and a motor vehicle actually is defined as a motorized conveyance used for commercial purposes only. And then commercial purposes, you look at the definition of that in the United States Code, and it says to only be transporting cargo or passengers for a fare. So, truck drivers, cement truck drivers, school bus drivers, taxi cab drivers, limo drivers, they all would be required to have a driver's license, because they can incur liability out there on the roads. And that's the original reason why the driver's license was created in the first place, because these commercial drivers, big trucks and stuff, were creating potholes in the roads and doing hit and runs, and they needed a way to kind of hold these people accountable, or the businesses accountable, so that they could track down a truck if it sideswiped somebody and just kept going or whatever. But, if we don't operate in a commercial capacity, who says I need a license to go travel to the store in whatever means, is popular of the day?
Or travel to work every day.
Yeah, well, work, according to them, you're working already. If you're traveling to work, you're already being employed, and that doesn't make sense.
That's kind of fudging the law a little bit there, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, they all say it's subject to interpretation, but who has the right interpretation?
Is this your code law or is this the Bible?
Yeah. Well, they don't like me in their courtroom because I ask these questions that they can't answer, or that I can get them right away. Like ask, if I failed to produce a driver's license, I can ask them if I broke a law. Typically, they'll say yes, of course. And then I can show them where a statute is not a law. And if I have somebody on the stand sworn under penalty of perjury, they can automatically be declared incompetent for not knowing what's going on, and possibly even lie without even knowing it, and get themselves in deep doo-doo. But
so they have high standards they're supposed to adhere to that they don't adhere to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They follow procedure. There's no government agent that is allowed to have an opinion. They all follow procedure, and I'm self-directed. I don't follow procedure. I can do whatever I want. I don't have to adhere to a code because I've never sworn an oath to uphold one. And that's one of the big things. Every government agent, every cop, whatever, they swear an oath. And the thing about an oath that's bad news is it takes away your ability to make choices in the future. If you swear an oath to uphold something, you're no longer able to make a choice about what you do in a situation like that. You have to adhere to the orders of the policy procedure.
Well, what I'm hearing here is that this is a whole big different world from when you go down to the food stamp office and they ask you to swear an oath that everything you've said, information you've given them is true and accurate, and going in and swearing an oath to become a military man or any kind of government official of any kind, wherein as you're committing your actual rights over, in other words.
Yeah, if I were in court, I would use oaths extensively. I would put everybody on the stand that has anything to say about my case and swear them in. Let's get them sworn in, under penalty of perjury, so that there's actual repercussions for what they do. How else are you going to hold them accountable if you can't get them to be honest? They even have a term for it, test-a-lying.
Test-a-lying. I never heard that one before.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They all do it, or they all know what it means. All the cops. It's a common term.
Oh, I wanted to mention all the listeners that Trent has got a website that covers all of this information at freedom.This. He's got plenty of information there and links to his books. He's got more than one book out if you want to learn more about this. And I'm going to be posting his website link into the chat room for everybody right now. Trent, before I forget, I noticed when I read your bio over at Amazon, if I remember correctly, I think it said you haven't used a driver's license in years and you drive anyway.
Yeah, I don't carry state issued ID. Even if look at the word issued, is, take it apart, is sued.
So, have you ever been pulled over or picked up behind not having this license?
Oh, yeah.
And when it went to court, how did you handle it?
Well, I have several videos on my YouTube channel of me in court, me being kidnapped, me having cars stolen from me. But every day is a new day, and every day I learn something else. So something I may have done 2 years ago might have evolved into something, into a more firm belief, or maybe not even belief, but a truth. So the way I look at it, I've had several court experiences. I've been arrested multiple times, usually for victimless. I mean, I don't think I've had a victim crime, but yeah, it's usually over money. I had a child support obligation. My daughter, though, now lives with my parents. I kind of have too high of a profile for her to be living with me, but I do see her, and I do, I care about her, and I do what I can, but they still have this $20,000 or so obligation they think that I owe when I don't know. It's obligation that I never contracted with. They just started telling me that I needed to pay this money, and I tried to keep up with it for a while, but
well, was it? Did they say it was for child support or for alimony or? Yeah,
just child support. And I had to leave her mom because she would bring some different guy home from the bar every night, and after I beat the crap out of 3 different guys, I realized that it wasn't the guy's fault. It was her fault. So I realized that I needed to leave her.
You remind me of a neighbor I had over on Reynolds Street in Houston. I swear, every time that man come home, I'd see him out in the courtyard picking up a pipe, wanting to go in there to the next guy his wife was having an affair with. And, I mean, she had like a different guy every day, it seemed like. Yeah. And I wondered, is this guy ever going to realize that she seems to be a problem, that no matter how many people he beats up, she's going to bring another one home?
Yeah. Well, I got scared. I thought I almost killed someone one time. He was knocked out on the ground. He fell on the ground, and I heard the sick thud of his skull hitting the pavement. And all this, he just started immediately snoring loud and bleeding everywhere. And I had to wake him up and tell him to go to the hospital. And I know, hey, I could get in trouble for this by admitting it now. I think it's outside the statute of limitations, but you don't want to have me in your court anyway, is what I'm thinking. So I don't care. I have nothing to hide anymore, and I'm free. I'm free. And it started inside. Nothing external. I mean, things that are external can help, but you have to know who you are, and it takes so much work internally to get over the conditioning we've been subjected to since any of us can remember, especially if you were in public school. So,
well, yeah, and I heard that there even been tasing students in elementary school for throwing temper tantrums in the classroom.
Yeah, because it's not important that they learn anything. It's important that they do have to learn one thing: to respect authority. That's it.
Well,
but if you heard this common core math,
respect and authority is an important thing, but tasing's kind of going overboard to get it.
Yeah. Well, respecting authority is one thing, but recognizing who the true authority is another. And most people, I hate to say it, but they need to be governed. And that's the way it's all set up, because they don't even know who they are. And how can you live a life making the proper decisions when you don't even know who you are? I mean, you would end up being consumed by worldly things.
Well, a lot of people are grown people.
Yeah.
And they don't understand what's consuming them. But
yeah, there's so many different mental afflictions out there, like or clinical whatever, like depression, anxiety, even things all the way up to homicide and suicide, that I believe are direct results of the oppression and the system that we're forced to support.
Well, I don't think it's all, say, basically under a governmental suppression system. I mean, let's face it, the church has been suppressive for centuries, and they get their members to suppress, and they suppress their kids who suppress their kids, and it's like a snowball rolling downhill.
Well, we're very lucky to be living in the days that we are living in, because previously, maybe as recent as a few hundred years ago, if you didn't accept a religion, you would get to meet your maker right there. You know what I'm saying?
Or if you found the wrong religion, that would also be the outcome.
Yeah. But the penalties for being a heretic or whatever were way worse back then.
Oh yeah,
and we
death
have
and
our
torture.
Yeah, and they had some heinous torture devices. I described some of them in my book.
Yeah, I've read about some of them. You ever read the Master Game Plan by Robert Bauval and Graham Hancock?
No.
They go into great detail about some of the hideous things that the early church fathers did.
Yeah.
The Inquisition.
So, yeah, the Inquisition. Oh, that's a beautiful time to study in history. If you could find the right sources for your information, because.
But these same people who was tortured by the church back during before the Renaissance, during the Dark Ages, were their descendants ended up being suppressed by their parents and their ancestors, and these descendants ended up coming to America, and they were suppressing their descendants, who actually, some of them became our government. So everybody from the ground floor on came from a suppressed background back in the Dark Ages.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Yeah.
It was founded by a bunch of people who had been abused for years.
We have a history of enslavement and oppression, and the whole planet. And war, eternal war. And I think it's time to come to peace. It's time to stop fighting. It's time that we learned who we are, and that government did not create us. And just think of it this way. I like to tell people, imagine if you had a bratty kid that just wouldn't listen ever, and he was always trying to take advantage of you and persuade you into doing things. And one day he said, "Well, I'm gonna stay out all night, and you have to make me cookies because the Constitution says so." How ridiculous would that be? I mean, would you let that fly if you were a good parent?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So we created government. Man created government. It's man-made. So we are responsible for it, just like the child. It is our responsibility to keep that kid in line, whatever it takes.
Now, you sound like you're referring to the kid within ourselves as well as the kids we raise.
Yes, that's very true. Because freedom, the only way you can have freedom is with responsibility. You have to be fully responsible for yourself. And something like insurance, auto insurance, you give away your responsibility. How can a third party that is called a limited liability corporation assume full liability for your actions? It's impossible. And I'll tell you, no amount of money will bring somebody back to life.
No, that's very true.
But you being responsible for your actions can prevent it. So, and that's, the whole law system is set up like that. I could go out, and I'm not saying that I would, but I could go out and do something really bad, murder somebody or something, and no law would stop me. But what would stop me? My own conscience. And that's what does. I don't not break the law because I know the law and I don't want to break it. If there's a law that's unjust, it's my duty to break it. So,
well, I was going to say, though, if you stop and think about it, if everybody walking the face of this planet just decided to take responsibility for themselves and quit breaking the law, wouldn't the governments around the world downsize for having no need of law enforcement officials to enforce the law to begin with?
Yeah, they definitely would. That they would be obsolete.
So what happens is when people run amok like they're doing now, they're actually saying, I want to be governed by somebody else, but then the people who govern them run amok on them. And all this is dating back to why don't everybody take accountability when nobody wants to take accountability, not even the people in charge.
Everybody wants to defer their responsibility. But we can't. We can't do that because we just end up not being responsible and people get hurt. But, yeah.
I got to be honest with you, Trent. There was a time in my 20s that I would not understand what you're talking about. I mean,
yeah.
It seemed like you had to have government, and how are we supposed to control ourselves any better? You can't control the actions of another.
Yeah.
At the
that's
time,
the
though,
key right there.
I never grasped the concept of controlling myself and everybody else controlling themselves. Yes, it's true you'll never control another, but as long as everybody's got that attitude, then everybody's got a means not to do any better, and nothing gets any better. Everybody has to take the attitude of looking at themselves and not worrying about the other before anything will work.
Yeah, think of a real simple situation. Like, say you're on the freeway, and there's this guy tailgating you, right? So you decide, okay, I'm going to show this guy, and you hit your brakes, and you're like, oh yeah, that's fine. He can go ahead and rear-end me because the insurance will pay for it, and he'll probably be deemed as the party that's at fault anyway. That's not being responsible. That's
letting your ego get away with you.
Yeah.
I'll teach them to ride me.
Yeah.
I know that feeling because I used to drive a floor ship standard pickup truck, and I would go from fifth down to third and let out on that clutch so that it would go, and there'd be no brake lights for the guy to get warned by.
Yeah, and I bet it was made out of heavy metal too, wasn't it?
And then I'd jam it back up to fifth and pop the gas pedal right before he made contact just to make him mess his pants.
Yeah, so I'm real serious about this stuff, and as a matter of fact, I sell these not for hire, non-commercial use only tags on my website, and I just started a new road pirate protection service where you can get assurance, not insurance, and we can't guarantee what the police will do, but we can guarantee that you will not be alone and that we have your back. We're real good at paperwork, and what we'll do is we call the supervisor. You call us when you get stopped, when you see the emergency lights being activated, and we get to work immediately taking care of you. We'll call the supervisor. We'll file a tort claim immediately, and just get the ball rolling so that you don't have to. That's the big thing. People, I've been selling lots of these lawful traveler packages, but people are too scared. Without somebody having their back, people need to be assured that they're not alone, and so that's what we're doing. And we're starting something that's it's already blossoming. I got a car alarm going off here, I guess.
Oh, is that your alarm? I thought it was outside our house.
But yeah, we are real serious about this. I got a partner, and we've got a hotline, and we're set up, ready to rock and roll at roadplan.us. So check that out. I give away a bunch of stuff on freedomfromgovernment.us as well. All kinds of free documents, articles. There's several hundred articles, I'm sure, and I have thousands of registered viewers or users on there, and I every day on Facebook I'm posting the things that are affecting me at the moment and things I'm thinking about, and it tends to be a real great place for discussion. So yeah, I don't know, I'm just
are you going to be having some kind of classes that people can take on what to do in certain legal situations?
I am doing more of those. I'm working with someone right now to do another a class. It's not nailed down yet, so I don't really want to go into too much about it. But yes, and at my website, keynote.trentgoodbody.com, you can request an event. You can request me to come speak for you. So I'm open to doing whatever. And if you want to ask me any questions on my Facebook wall, I will always answer your questions for free. The phone is a little more of a privilege, so I could sit on the phone for hours all day long, and I typically do. but I kind of have to find a way to be able to have make it work. So,
in other words, you can't afford to be getting distracted and running your yap all day long talking to somebody.
Yeah. And it's awesome to be able to share with people and to know how they feel and to hear all about what's going on. But I know what's going on. So
yeah, I mean, it's all over
wonderful.
the news. You can't miss it.
Yeah.
So there are certain things that, in other words, we can know that will protect us. As long as the cops know we know it, they'll be more gun shy of stepping out of line with us, in other words.
Yeah, well, the problem people do, and you see this every day on Cops, if you watch that show, whatever, but you'll see people running away, scared, people making decisions based in fear. What you have to do is get rid of the fear, and I know it's tough. I already know. I have a free book I wrote that'll help you get rid of it, though. It's called Acting with Honor and As King. I'm giving it away for free at the website I mentioned earlier, freedom.This. Free to everybody. You don't have to sign up or anything. It's just free. But fear, making choices based on controlled by fear, is making a decision that has been controlled. So we have to get rid of the fear. And when you're dealing with these agents of government, you have to get rid of the emotion as well. Because if you start screaming, I know my rights, and they're going to put handcuffs on you and toss you in the back of their car. They're not even going to deal with you because you're being belligerent and you're out of control. And so you need to learn how to speak with them in a manner that you can get through to them. And, we have to teach them. They're our brothers and sisters. I hate to say it. I know that people hate cops, but we're all inhabitants on this planet. We need to learn how to get along. So them having the knowledge is just as important as us having it.
Well, I think if you ask me, Trent, and I could be wrong, because I've had several dealings with the police myself over all kinds of traffic violations. When I was younger, I used to have a lead foot. But that night, never inspected my car, never had insurance, and most everything I did was traffic related. But at any rate, I noticed that most of the police are guys just like you and me, your parents or whoever else, that all they really want to do is do their job, and they just don't want to have people get up in their face and try to walk all over them, in other words.
Yeah, if you have ever said...
There are exceptions, but they're not the rule, is what I'm saying.
If you have ever said, I'm just doing my job, it might be time to look for a different line of work. Because if you have to say, I'm just doing my job, that means you're probably harming someone.
You mean if a cop says that?
Yeah. I'm just doing my job, and that's what they all do. That's what they all say. But you know what? Those the Nazi officers in Nuremberg also said that, and that did not exonerate them.
Well, if doing harm is your job, then you are doing your job, but it's not a job you should have.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not saying that they're saying that. I'm just saying you can tell that some of them are just doing that.
Yeah, and
there's a lot of belligerence for no reason at all, and then other cops ask for it.
I'll give them credit. Cops deal with a lot of crap, but what was I going to say? I was going to say something about them. They're humans, or they're men too, and I'm sure they can be reasonable if they have a little bit more information. And maybe we can even persuade them to stop following orders and to just make morally based choices. Because violence and force is not okay. And I don't care if you're a government. It's still not okay. So
abusing another human is never okay.
Yeah.
And then, let's face it, there was a time that most anytime you got stopped or arrested, the worst they would do is restrain you and get you into the car, get you in the jail, and put you in the cell by yourself till you cooled off. But nowadays, more and more times than not, they're beating the crap out of people.
Oh, I just remembered what I wanted to say earlier. Cops, most of them had good intentions when they became officers. Same with attorneys. They wanted to help people. That's why they got into that line of work. But then you get into the actual work and you find out all this stuff, and what do? You've been training in the case of an attorney, you've been training for 6 to 8 years to work this job, and then to find out it's all wrong when you get in there. I mean, that's got to be really tough.
Well, so, that and they go in there with this here, I want to help the public. I want to do good for the world. And then they find out that the world has a bad attitude.
Yeah.
Then they're like, nobody appreciates me. Why should I care?
Yeah, but the thing is, everybody, I can totally agree, see what you're saying there. Why should I care if nobody else does, kind of thing.
And then they cop an attitude, and then they turn corrupt on people because they felt like they weren't appreciated.
Yeah. I think the problem is that we're sadly misinformed or uninformed in most cases. And just like they said on G.I. Joe, knowing is half the battle. Once you know the truth, and only when you know the truth is when you can start doing something about it. So,
well, I think if more people had more security cameras in their cars and on their homes, there'd be more police getting caught doing some of this, and that may cut down some of it right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard about scenarios where when police departments implemented a policy saying that all the officers have to wear body cameras.
California, I think, did that recently.
The percentages of arrests and things, everything went down drastically. So that's a good thing, I was in a national park or a state park. Or no, it was a national park not too long ago camping, and a couple park rangers came up to me, and I first thing I said was, "Is there anything I could help you with?" And they said no, and I was like, "Good." But they informed me right away that I was being audio and video recorded. They had these little wearable body cameras, so that's awesome because that can provide us with a little bit of accountability for them. But, the videos can always get lost or destroyed, so it's still not to a place where they can be totally held accountable. But it's getting there, and this is good. Because
you gotta have to crawl before you can walk, though.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing about if you're going to stand up for your rights, too, you got to make sure you have evidence.
Okay. Now, this is how many different books do you have out?
I have 5 out right now.
Okay, I think I said earlier 4, so I was really pretty close.
Yeah.
Now, all the books you got out, they are pertaining to this type of material?
Well, the first book I wrote, I just, originally I titled it Answers to 20 of Life's Toughest Questions, with questions like, why is there so much evil in the world? And the simple answer to that is, it's not really that there's evil in the world. It's that you perceive. It's really about perception. But anyway, it was originally titled Answers to 20 of Life's Toughest Questions, and I retitled it to You Don't Want to Read What This Man Has to Say, kind of to challenge people. So that was the first one. The second one was How to Reclaim Your Power, 356 pages. And it teaches, I wrote that book so that you couldn't unlearn it. Once you read it, it's you proceed
embedded in your brain.
Yeah, you can't unlearn it. So, what you do with that information after you learn it is up to you. But typically, people are forced to stand up and take responsibility for themselves and start making their choices based morally instead of what they've been told or what they believe. A belief is just something that you haven't investigated for yourself, really. And it's usually taken second hand from a third party. But, okay, that was the second book. The third book was the Rebirth of Mankind. And that book is about nanotechnology, genetics, artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, and basically it's about where we're headed as a race. And some of the implications can be scary. We need to be careful about where we're headed with the different technologies that are evolving. And then I wrote a book called Status Delusions. And that is basically every argument that I've ever heard anyone that's in support of government tell me, like taxes are used for roads. Without government, there would be chaos, kind of thing. And people, when have we even tried that? Kind of the self-responsibility thing. But, like the thing, taxes or fees for services, the economy would collapse without government. And it also covers things such as the use of force, divine right, the social contract, healthcare, voting, sacrificing liberties for security. If you don't like it, you can leave. Monopolies would abound without government, And then my most recent book that I wrote it in one night, and it's 30 pages. It's the smallest law book ever, and it's free. I'm giving it away. But basically, that one tells you how to deal with anyone that's causing you harm. It teaches you how to deal with any law enforcement, lawyers, judges, clerks, bailiffs, and any other type of individual that you interact with that is trying to cause you harm, without knowing how to file paperwork, without knowing how, or even having to care about court procedure, laws, or statutes, policy. It doesn't matter. But I have to tell you one thing. The thing that does matter is being responsible for yourself and not harming others. And as long as you can guide yourself based on that direction, then we should be good. There should be no reason for anyone to try to control us or, hinder our progress or place obstacles in our way or put handcuffs on us without, we don't need that. And
the Apostle Paul, the way he put it is the law is for the lawless.
Yeah, exactly. If you do not govern yourself, you will be governed. But I govern myself because I don't need I don't need a parent anymore. Well, I can be responsible for myself.
I think it's also pretty true, though, when somebody comes up and says, like you were talking about earlier, without the law, there would be total anarchy. You're talking about a person who either does not want to have control of themselves or does not have faith in mankind to have control of themselves.
Yeah.
Because of the fact the law is for the lawless. Just the very fact that there has to be a law says that there's a certain chunk out there that is lawless.
Yeah, well, if I can't be trusted to govern myself, would I trust some corrupt politician to be able to govern me?
Well, that's the trap you get into when you want to be governed, is the government that's going to govern over you may be corrupt, and in many cases they are corrupt. Look at Hitler.
Yeah.
If you don't believe a government can go corrupt, think about the Nazi regime.
Yeah.
And just because that was back then doesn't mean
not just go corrupt, but get away with it.
Well, the more power you have, the easier it is to get away with it.
Yeah.
If you have a whole army or military unit that can enforce your law for you and your corruptness for you, you got a better chance of getting away with it than a guy that just has a 45 under his pillow.
Yeah. Oh, you have the thin blue line or the brotherhood or whatever, you know what I mean? So if you're a member of that club.
I show that the break time music is going to start here in just a couple of minutes. So in a few minutes after we go to break, when we come back, me and Terry, I think I want to get him, if I don't forget, to go into these arguments that people have for why we can't get by without a government. I think that would make for some interesting conversation.
Sure.
But we don't have time to go into it right now, and I thought by saying it now, either Terry would be able to remind, or Trent would be able to remind me, or somebody in the chat room would be able to remind me. And folks, don't forget, if you want to call in and ask questions when we come back, the number's 347-688-2902. And don't forget, guys, next month in July, Hawk's going to be having, not Hawk, his birthday party. He's turning on the Big 5-0. They've thrown that big party up in Kentucky. I forget exactly where, but I'm sure everybody here has heard about it now. don't forget to prep for that. I won't be able to make it myself. I don't get to travel with oxygen bottles with me very far, very long. But no reason why you guys can't have fun and, I don't know, UPS me a piece of cake or something. So with that, I sure we're due to start that in 1 minute. Oh, also a quick reminder to everybody not to forget to come see me this coming Saturday over at talknowradio.net. The guest is going to be David Cohen, and we're going to be talking about ley lines and earth energies. He's been studying this for about 25, 30 years, and I've actually had other guests that talked about ley lines before, and to be specific, the one by King Arthur's Carousel, and it was either Disneyland or Disney World, and he thought that the paranormal events that occurred there was because it's set at the intersection of two different ley lines. So there has been connections made before between different types of energies in these ley lines, and the possible connection between opening up a paranormal door. I don't know if this guy's going to do like the other guy did. In fact, the other guy was talking about Latitude 33, Keys of the Kingdom. He was an ex-CIA agent, so I thought that was really interesting. We'll be back in a little while. Y'all take care.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
Hello, I'm Benjamin.
And I'm Jasmine.
We are inner tour guides with black belts in the art of self-awareness and how to live a passionate life.
We love talking with you about what you have and what you want.
More importantly, we want to explore with you how to bridge the gap between that wanting and bring it right back to the having.
So what are your hopes, dreams, and desires?
Is it money, love, success, health, wealth, or something even more specific?
Let us guide you through the exciting adventure of turning what you want into what you have.
Come join in the conversation on our show, The Inner Revolution.
We look forward to exploring with you.
Hey, Truther Junkies, it's me, Angela Black, and I'm back. Join me every weekday except for Wednesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern, Studio B on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com for my news show, At This Moment 2014. See you there.
The finder of lost children and missing persons. Monique Lassan. Surveillance civil and criminal investigations. I investigate.
No, I am the chosen one.
Do not underestimate the power of good, and do not dismiss the strength of the child.
Yes, every Wednesday evening on Revolution Radio, come join our very own Eye Investigatrix, Monique Lassan, with her private Eye X-Files.
So you're the finder of lost children?
Private Eye X-Files, every Wednesday from 10 to midnight Eastern, Studio B, on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
I realize it's very hard for you to take in. But it's your destiny to find the golden child.
Most guys freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
The body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting to danger, unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
He wants a challenge. Let's give him one.
The voice that whispers in your ears are the screams that you fear. The mind you cannot defy is the heart that rules mankind. The people who made you are the gods that will save you. I am Steve Travesty. I am the voice. The ghost in the machine. Ghost in the Machine. Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Studio A.
Right here, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Okay, everybody, we're back, and I would like to apologize to everybody out there listening. I heard the elephant on the keyboard out there. I was not aware that my Skype typing and my guest Skype typing was coming out on the air until y'all told me, and I never really realized all I had to do was stop it, was mute my microphone until we got back. So, sorry about that, guys. I'll keep that in mind for the future. So, Trent, are we all back and ready?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, coming back to some of the arguments that you used to hear, I did remember it for why we can't govern ourselves, because I've wondered about this same topic myself on more than one occasion. It seemed to me like the world would be a lot better place if everybody didn't need a government. Everybody would negotiate amongst themselves, in other words. So what are some of the excuses you hear? We already talked about one of them.
Well, can I read a little bit to you?
Sure.
Out of my book. This is chapter 12. Why don't you go live somewhere else, like Somalia? So one of the many typical responses statists give to an opponent in a conversation about not supporting the state is, if you don't like it, leave. This response has always bothered me. It is such an extreme and insensitive response, shows no compassion and empathy, and proves only how intolerant, cold-hearted, and bullying people can be. It's similar to such responses as, my way or the highway. In other words, act the way I want, or you can go die by getting run over by cars. It shows no attempt to try to understand the other side and try to reach an arrangement that both sides agree to. It's really just saying, well, if you don't like it, tough cookie. Go cry to mommy because you won't get any sympathy from me. No moral individual would dare utter such an uncaring, insensitive remark. So, and I've been dealing with this a lot lately, actually. People are quick to sling insults. They're quick to call me an idiot. But I love that. I love insults because I know that when they're insulting me, they don't have a real argument. And they don't have a rebuttal for things that I've said. All they can say is that I'm an idiot. That's fine. But I think that it's going to catch on. My words are going to catch on. And people are going to be able to identify with them because they are true. And people need to be they need to be a little more morally oriented.
Yeah, there does seem, in my opinion, to be a total lack of morals amongst society as a whole. And I have to be honest, I've shared the limelight with just about everybody else in my time. But I think I've set myself aside from other people in as much as I'm constantly striving to do better. But how much do you really see other people trying to do better?
I doubt they are at all because they're they're stuck in the rat race of, going to work every day and barely having enough time to even do any kind of research, let alone absorb it or contemplate it. People are stuck on the merry-go-round. You got to step off it. And the one way, it's hard. It's hard to get out of that, but there is a way, and it's called learning a trade. Learn a trade instead of getting a job, or create a non-job, which is people can do it. I just reached a milestone on my YouTube channel. I have 100 videos on there now, and YouTube started paying me for them just to make videos and put them online for people to watch. And that's, it's an income stream that I don't have to do anything except wait for people to watch my videos. So if we can, and if you can figure out a product or service to bring to market, you don't have to ask permission from anyone to be able to reap the fruits of your labor. It's hard though when you go get a job though, because they make you sign up for these things where they take money out of your money before you even
plan and stuff like that.
What's that?
401k plans and things like that.
Well, 401k plan is typically more for your, set aside for you to save for your own retirement. But income tax is not. If a slave owes 100% of the fruits of his labor to his master, at what percentage is it not slavery anymore? What percentage can you be able to give away of the fruits of your labor and have it not be slavery?
That's an interesting question. And
yeah, I would think 0%.
Because most people don't consider paying their taxes out of their paycheck as an indicative of them being slaves. But at the same time, because they just look at it as you're just supporting your government. But then you got to ask yourself why you're supporting your government when the government's been shutting down offices, cutting off food stamps and things like that.
Yeah, and realistically, the way everybody should be looking at it is that if you pay taxes and you support your government, you're buying bullets to kill children overseas. You're supporting murder and terrorism. The very thing they tell us that we're against. It's all screwed up and it's all backwards. It's like looking the way they've set up their system. It's like a mirror. It's like looking in a mirror. It looks just like the way it should be, but it's backwards. It's all backwards.
I know that if you go to one of these churches that are some would call Zionist, and I do not mean that to sound anti-Semite, although I know that people saying what I'm saying now would normally be considered that. But these churches are sending money over there that's supplying money for the the Jews over there to wage war against the Palestinians and kick them off of their property. I wouldn't say anything about them as far as the Jewish race goes, But it doesn't matter to me if it's a white race, a Caucasian race, a black race, Mexican race, Jewish race. If there's any races kicking people off of their property, it's not usually the whole race. It's only a certain elite of them that's high up enough to have that kind of power. The lower people, like the average Joes like you and me in that race, have no part of it, and they don't even know what's going on.
Yeah, it really has nothing to do with their race or religion or anything
No,
like that.
it doesn't.
Has to do with the use of force and violence.
It has to do with a certain group of people, and it doesn't matter which race it is. That's why I'm saying I'm not talking anti-Semite, because there's Caucasians that's going in there and helping with this as well. It's not just a certain race, in other words, by themselves. Yeah. So you can't when you jump up on people and call them an anti-Semite before pointing this out, you're really enabling the people that's doing the damage over there to continue to do it, because you're stopping somebody who's trying to stop it.
Yeah. Yeah. What if we didn't have a group to defend? What if we were all on the same page, but supporting the same goal, but on our own, without being a part of a group that opposed another group? That's it's the problem. They've been keeping us divided.
Well, I think that's what the media propaganda machine is for, is to feed the public enough disinformation from both sides, and then let everybody just pick and choose their side and fight it out, because while they're fighting it out, they don't see what anybody else is really doing.
Yeah.
A distraction racket, in other words.
Yeah, yeah. If you stay fighting, then you never have a chance to focus on what really matters, because you're all wrapped up in some, it's just ego.
Yeah, that is something that I don't think parents or teachers or preachers or anybody else that's been in a position to teach it has really taught about in probably 20, 30, 40 years, give or take guesstimation, is the ego and the role that it plays in everyday life. And you can see the backlash of it now just by walking down the road, and you see every person you go past on one ego trip or another.
Yeah. Everybody's in their own little bubble. They don't want us coming together. They have to keep us divided.
So then you got to ask yourself, before you can make any changes, how do you change that? How do you bring people together?
Well, I think that the solution is to give people the information and then let them make the decision. And you have to be able to trust them to make the right one. I know it's kind of going out on a limb, and it could be considered chaotic, but some things chaos is useful for. For example, the internet. It's definitely chaotic, but we wouldn't have it any other way.
Explain.
Yeah.
I mean, why is it you wouldn't have it any other way, and what's chaotic about the internet?
Well, it is, would it be easy to organize the internet? I mean, maybe, but it would be quite a huge task. I'm trying to find this. I talked about it here in my book, but I can't. It's oh yeah, here we go. Just a second. One of the biggest claims made by a statist is that without rules there would be chaos. This is a convenient all-purpose statist argument. This makes about as much sense as the notion that without arranged marriages, people would be going around marrying whoever they wanted. It would definitely be chaos. The correct response to this argument would be, yeah, that's exactly what we want. In case you hadn't noticed, the internet is chaotic fundamentally, and that's exactly how we want it. Nature is a tinkerer, not a designer, and we owe everything to that fact. The first thing that we need to understand about chaos is that it isn't always bad. Chaos is actually necessary as order. This is not inherently bad, as the argument seems to imply, but if we think deeper about this concept, laws are currently absurdly complex. Nobody can read, remember, or understand them. How in the grace of God are we supposed to comply with all of them? Politicians can and frequently do disregard their oaths. They even regularly commit outright crimes against their own people with no ill consequence. Most of the time, they don't even try to hide it. In reality, regulations are up for grabs to the highest bidder with absolutely no ethics or moral principle basis whatever. Many laws that have been legislated also contradict each other. Bankers can scam the public and get bailouts instead of bankruptcies, and this cycle of destruction and corruption goes on and on and on. So, yeah, ordinary law and order in a voluntary society is unlikely to be a big problem. One that ordinary people won't think about very much, notice very much, except in the sense of large gangs or external governments attempting to become governments. A statist would like to tell you that without government, everyone would murder, rape, and steal, and it wouldn't matter who pays for the roads because they wouldn't be safe. A proper response to this reckless assertion is, are you saying that the only reason you don't murder, rape, and steal is because you're afraid of punishment? And if that's the case, then they're really in no position to be lecturing about morals. Another way to look at this argument is that even if the statist is correct in his assumption that humanity would not only be lawless, but also immoral without government, their argument still fails because a race of evil humans couldn't be good and moral on their own, but they will vote in someone who will force them to. How in the world does that make anything close to resembling logical sense?
Well, okay, pardon me, Trent.
Yeah.
But this sounds like human madness to me. I cannot be moral. I'm going to fight morals. If you don't put somebody over me, I want somebody to govern me and make me be moral because I'd rather be a slave to be moral than I would be moral on my own.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can't be
does this sound like madness to you?
It's people not being able to be responsible for themselves.
Is it that they're not, that they really and honestly aren't able, that they don't want to, or is it that they just don't have faith that they can?
I think it's a combination of the control mechanism that is in place, not thinking they can, making decisions based in fear instead of morally sound decision. Also, it's the way it is.
Is it? You know,
isn't that?
Let me put it to you this way, Trent. What do you think would happen to children growing up in homes around America, around the world, constantly hearing man is immoral, man is sinful, man cannot do well on his own. Without Jesus as their Savior, they must, by default, sin. What kind of adult do you think these children are going to make when they get grown?
They will make a very judgmental adult.
Or do you think they'll grow up believing that they can't, they got to be governed by Jesus or by law or by somebody to be moral, and maybe they really could have done it all along if they had been taught better as a child? I
think that people have a tendency to believe in themselves easier than they believe in others. And I think the whole thing is based on people wanting to control others. Like that guy down the street that always parks his truck in the street and takes up to half the road. I want to make him not do that anymore. So that's pretty much where we're at as far as the law. Isn't
that also a fear-based response?
What's that?
Isn't that control being brought on by a desire to control being brought on by a fear-based response?
Oh, yeah, because people with guns will come if you don't do it.
Yeah. So, in other words, they have to control other people to keep their world safe.
Yeah. Yeah, and really, government theoretically was created to protect men and women's rights. That's what they're officially supposed to be doing. But more and more lately, it seems like they are only protecting the interests of the corporations or of their funding source. And that's wrong because the government is our servant.
It's supposed to be our servant.
Yeah, the living men and women created the government to protect them and to, protect the rights of everybody. And they've lost focus. They've lost that. And when governments become destructive to these ends, it is not only our obligation, but our duty to change things. So
do you think there's any hope that a revolution could help anything?
Any revolution that would help would have to be a nonviolent revolution, because they're ready for the violence. They are ready. We have to have a revolution of information, and it's happening. Never has there been a better tool than the internet for research.
I think personally it needs to be a revolution of information, but also a revolution of attitude.
Yeah.
Of mental
perception,
and moral growth and perception. I think it's all a big picture, and I don't think there's any hope for the present generation other than for them to take charge to raise a better next generation who can raise a next generation, because we didn't get this way overnight, and we're not going to get any better overnight either.
Yeah, and it only takes one generation to brainwash a people.
Brainwash them. It's going to be hard to brainwash for thousands of years.
Yeah, because people have been conditioned, and it's going to be tough.
Well,
it already is tough.
There's a lot of people walking the street in today's world, year 2014, I think it is, isn't it? I'm not real good with dates. I don't even keep up with the year I'm in. Oh, yeah, okay, it's 2014. I looked at my clock. But these people that are walking around, acting the way they act, doing the things they are a byproduct of what happened in the days of Moses, which was some 3,000 years ago, that was ingrained throughout all the centuries and millennia up to Jesus. And then that Christianity come on behind it and added to it and changed it and retrained it another 2,000 years to get what we're at right now. There's no way that you're going to take that 5,000 years worth of generation and work. In other words,
hey, can you hold on for just a second? I'm so sorry. I'll be right back. No.
With the folks, we'll be right back here in a second. And in the meantime, I'm going to try to see if I can take a little peek-see what all we got coming up besides just this one I mentioned earlier, because I know I've got some good things in the horizon coming down the pipe. Well, I might be too late. Okay, you back, Trent?
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. I just had a printer delivered.
Ah.
Yeah.
That's good every time when you have dogs.
Yeah.
Oh, real quickly, I want to remind everybody, if you want to call in, that's 347-688-2902, or you can just click on the Studio A in your Skype if you're one of the hosts that's on that list. So, back to where we were at. I don't see how you could take 5,000 years worth of brainwashing and undo it and rework it in one generation, in other words.
Yeah. Well, I think that we have help. And I think that it's actually time. The help that I'm speaking of is, I don't know. I don't even know what to call it. But I can tell you that something definitely happened to me to write these books. I feel like it almost like the information was coming from a central source or something. And I feel like this is, for lack of a better term, this energy is helping others to realize what we're doing as well.
Kind of like being led by the Spirit.
Yeah, you could say that. I have a tough time defining things that I don't know what they are, that I can't explain. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I feel like there has been, there's something more. I feel like we're all connected somehow. So
I've been hearing that from, I can't tell you how many authors over the last 7 years that I've interviewed that all say the same thing, that there's an interconnectedness. And it's like everybody is waking up to that fact, especially people that are writing books, making movies and things like that. And it's like it's driving them to get this information out there, in other words.
Yeah. It's almost like there's a big overview or a big plan happening. And I think it's meant, it's like the final battle for who we really are.
The final battle between good and evil.
Yeah. Who are we going to let evil win? And evil is very deceptive. It's full of deception, and they use that to their advantage, having you believe things that aren't necessarily true. But it's 5,000 years worth of oppression and enslavement is not going to be overcome overnight.
I think also in a lot of cases, it wasn't until America was founded that we started getting out from underneath the oppression of the church. And you give a people that's been oppressed for thousands of years and their descendants for thousands of years freedom, suddenly they don't know what to do with it, and they go amok and look at what America becomes.
Yeah. I think where we are now, people don't even know. People don't know the history of what the people of this earth have been through, and it's literally it's been a slave planet, and it still is. Except the chains are not physical; they're in your mind.
That's where a lot of people miss the boat at, is they don't realize that when people talk about being chained, they're referring to spiritual, emotional, and mental change, like your beliefs in certain things that bind you to a certain behavior. You have a belief about a church or a certain place of business or any one thing, and you'll go out and support that with your life because your belief in it is that strong. But in all honesty, that belief is invisible. It's like a chain.
Yeah. And they're typically very effective. Even more so effective than an actual physical chain would be, because you see the chain, you can feel the chain, you know it's there, and you want it off. You don't necessarily know that you're enslaved when your mind is the thing that's being chained. So, and
then too, in a lot of cases, when you run into corrupt cops, they're not aware of everything that's going on inside of their psyche that's driving them.
Oh no, they're top procedure. But I teach procedure to counter their procedure. So.
Well, yeah, I think you hit the right word right on the head too, Trent. Procedure. They're like robots. They're programmed. A procedure would be no different than a program. In this situation, you had this is the procedure. In this situation, this is the program, etc., etc. So there's no gray area for anything to be just a little bit different from one situation to the next. And of course, you and me both know that life is just not that black and white.
Yeah.
But yet you got people out there trying to run it black and white.
There's infinite shades of gray.
Infinite shades of black and white, too, for that matter.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to see that gray area in between. The cops don't want to. The preachers don't want to. The teachers don't want to. And once you've got somebody trained on something and they believe something strong enough, they'll give their life for that belief. I've seen it happen on more than one occasion.
Yeah. And what if that belief that you'd give your life for, if you give that belief up, you're taught that your soul will be damned for eternity. How hard would it be to give that up?
If you really believed that it was going to be damned, it would be very hard.
Yeah.
Because people are already afraid of death, not knowing what's going to come from behind, and if you convince them with something really horrible behind, it can have a pretty strong effect, I would imagine, if they were to believe it.
Yeah, I would say, don't focus on death. Focus on life. It's very short.
But sadly, more people than not will focus on death. But I don't think everybody realizes that death and life are really just different sides of the same coin. And if you're dead here, you're alive elsewhere.
Yeah, that or it's like a progression. Maybe we're supposed to learn as much as we can while we're here. Maybe this experience is something special. Maybe what if we don't even really have bodies, and having a third dimensional body is like a gift that we can only, we only have it for a very limited amount of time, and I feel like every one of us has a job to do here as well, more or less a calling. And I know I'm getting into some kind of religious sounding stuff, but a friend of mine told me yesterday or a couple days ago that you can do anything religiously.
That's true.
You can drink coffee religiously.
You can clean house religiously. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, for me, to my way of thinking, religiously is another word for devotion. You're very, or dogmatism. You're very dogmatic about having coffee at the exact same time every day. You dogmatically have that newspaper back there on the pot where you squat on at 10 a.m. every morning without a fail, no matter where you're at.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew a guy that worked with me over at Renner Center that at 10 a.m., smack on the dot, he grabbed a cup of coffee and a newspaper and headed for the restroom. You could set your clock by him, I swear to God. He was religious about that, though, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Now, we liked the guy. We called him the FBI guy because when he wore the glasses, he looked just like an FBI agent. And, he was a very likable character. Everybody loved him. It's just that you could set your clock by him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, religion doesn't just necessarily pertain to things of God or spirituality or faith or sin or anything of that nature. It's more of a ceremonial type thing, you might say.
Yeah, it's more of what are you really devoted to? Exactly. It's and the thing that is the most problematic for me is that people devote their whole lives to things, to beliefs that they have obtained from a third party without doing any investigation of this belief on their own. They just accept it. And that's one of the biggest issues that we deal with is people don't do their own research. People don't go out and find things out to be true for themselves. They just,
not only that,
handed down.
They give up their authority over their own body to the church or to a cult or many other types of different groups. There's no shortage of groups to give your authority away to, but anytime you give your authority over to any organization, be it religious or non-religious, it matters not. You're really, to my way of thinking, enslaving yourself to them. You're saying, I'm giving my control. I'm going to do things your way, what you say is, the almighty word.
Yeah.
And that's something that really belonged to you. You had no right to, you're going to regret giving it away. I don't want to say you have no right because I might be corrected on that later.
Yeah, well, I feel like that word authority is another word that has been, the definition has been altered. I feel like an authority should be someone who is knowledgeable on a subject. You can't just be granted authority by getting a badge. I feel like an authority is someone who has to know something about what they're an authority on.
Well, that's because you got two different kinds of authority, though. And you got an authority on ancient Egypt, or you got an authority on law, or you got someone that has authority over children in a classroom. So isn't there really two different definitions for authority?
I suppose there could be, but in law, every word is only defined once. And I'm not saying that the legal definition of authority is to be knowledgeable on a topic. I'm saying that I feel like the term authority at one time meant that to have authority, you would have to be knowledgeable on a topic, but it's been changed to mean that to have authority, you can just be granted authority without having any knowledge. And I feel like that.
So you got the original meaning, and now you got an additional meaning that was later assigned.
Yeah, that's how I feel that may have happened. But the so-called authorities that have badges nowadays typically have no knowledge. I have a video on my YouTube channel of me running off these cops that were trying to arrest my sister. And I had to ask them if they were aware of a certain law, and they said, oh, no. And I said, you don't know the law? And, that's kind of a trick question, because you can't even really memorize a page of statute, let alone the whole book. So it's pretty much impossible for anyone to know the quote-unquote law.
Yeah, actually, I'll be honest with you, Trent. I saw that video.
Yeah.
And when you hollered that out about you don't know the law, I thought to myself, my God, the law books will fill entire libraries. Who's going to know all of that? Not even a computer.
Yeah. And that's why I try to make it simple. I have 2 laws, like I said. Do no harm and don't have fraud in your contracts. That covers it.
Wait a minute. Do no harm and what?
Don't have any fraud in my contracts.
Oh, don't have any fraud. Okay, if you can't have fraud in your contracts, where can you have it?
Nowhere.
Well, you opened the door for that one now. Come on.
Yeah. But, it's true, though. What law are you breaking if you don't cause anybody harm? I mean, people should be free to do whatever they want.
Well, I would tend to agree with you. The way Jesus put it was to love your neighbor as yourself, and to love the Lord God with all your heart and soul and mind. If you're following the golden rule, even if you don't love God, if you're just following the golden rule, if everybody walking the face of the earth did that, there would be no need for law.
Yeah. Well, that would just be the law. Yeah.
Just make that the law. Hey, everybody, don't treat anybody the way you wouldn't want to be treated, and allow them their freedoms. If they want to be topless, let them be topless. If they want to be nudist, let them be nudist. If they want to be gay, let them be gay. It's not your business.
Yeah.
But no, everybody has to say, well, this is sin, this is sin, this is sin. That's suppression. I don't care how you want to cut it. You can call it sin, but you're still suppressing another human being, and that human being cannot be accountable to God if he's too busy being accountable to you.
Yeah, you want to hear something interesting? What's the difference between a crime and a sin?
Oh, I never heard this before.
Yeah.
What is the difference, or is there one?
A sin, well, a sin is something that you are held accountable for after your death. And a crime is something that you're held accountable for while you're alive.
I actually never thought about it, but you're right. That is true.
Yeah.
But yeah, most people, they want to hold you accountable for it here on earth. And I've said it time and time before, and I honestly believe this. In order for a person to be accountable to God, you have to let him be accountable to God.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as he's not out raping somebody or mugging somebody or, not doing harm to another.
That's like the first story out of the Bible, the story of free will.
First story out of the Bible was about free will. Where was this at?
Adam and Eve.
That was about free will? Well, yeah, because he gave them the choice to eat of the tree.
Yeah, the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil.
I never really connected that to free will before.
Well, they had to go up and eat the fruit on their own. Even though they could have been enticed to do it, it was a decision they had to make on their own and an action they had to do on their own.
That is true, and he could have, if he didn't want to give them free will, just not planted the trees.
Yeah.
They're not
I
there.
think that we had to be given that option.
Okay, now, I don't want you to run out of time and that music starts, so real quick, we can always come back later if we have time. Is there anything you want to cover that I haven't thought to ask you during the show already?
Oh, I can't think of anything. But, yeah, I can't think of anything. My website has a lot, my website has lots of comprehensive information if you feel like you need to learn more about this stuff. And if you really feel like you want to connect and hear things every day, friend me on Facebook or follow me on Facebook because I do lots of stuff on there every day.
And he does respond on there if you message him.
Yep. Yep.
You got any questions for him? You want to ask him direct? If you guys want to ask him to come do a show with you, I'm pretty sure he'd be more than happy to. I can't speak for him, but I don't see why he wouldn't.
And yeah, I will also be announcing events that I'll be doing as they come up too. So
you're planning on having some upcoming events going on?
Yeah, I'm thinking about workshops just to teach people about freedom and the rights and how the statute, who the statute is applicable to, and people just need to know. So I think that is something that I need to be doing.
Well, also I heard on a YouTube video that by all honest standards, and I think you said so in your bio over at Amazon on this one too, if I remember correctly, that you don't pay taxes, and a lot of people say we're not really required to.
Yep, I haven't filed taxes since 1992, and as a matter of fact, I've never filed taxes with my own signature. My parents filed them for me for years and years or whatever, and when I was supposed to start doing it myself, I just didn't do it.
And have you ever been to court for it?
No, and I'll tell you something interesting about the IRS and tax evasion or willful failure to file as well. There's never been a tax evasion or willful failure to file case where they haven't had in evidence a form signed under penalty of perjury that you already owe the taxes. So when you file, you're making the agreement. You're voluntarily complying. They even say that in their own IRS code. Voluntary compliance is how the IRS operates.
So you've already filed one tax form. You volunteered to the rest of them, but if you never filed the first time, they don't have anything to hold you on.
Yeah, and it's what you're claiming. Do you claim to be a taxpayer? What evidence do you have that you are required to pay taxes? Why would you be claiming something like that if you didn't even know for sure if you had to or not? The income tax code originally was only for officers of government because the government can't tax things that are unapportioned. It can't levy a tax like that without it being, equal to everybody. So,
well, isn't income tax equal to everybody?
No.
Oh, well, tell me more.
What you make. You pay based on what you make, right?
Oh, okay. So since it's not evenly apportioned, it goes on people's pay. Well, okay. Couldn't that still be evenly apportioned if it was evenly apportioned by percentage?
Maybe, but it's not. And people admit to being a taxpayer without even knowing if they are or not.
And, of course, once they admit it, they've committed.
And did you know what evidence there is that you're a U.S. citizen?
What's that? Did you live here?
There's only one. The main evidence that they have that you're a U.S. citizen is the voter registration card. There's only one question on there, and it's usually a checkbox, and it says, "Are you a U.S. citizen?" When you claim that status, you give up your rights and you claim the privileges of a U.S. citizen. But you lose your rights as a man by declaring that you're that status. So.
Okay, now, when your voter's registration card expires, if you fail to go renew it, do you lose your citizenship and get back your rights?
No, I don't believe so. But you can rescind that.
And how do you do that?
Well, you have to file a rescission with the government, and I have that form on my website. But you have to really, before you make any of these kind of steps, you have to do all your own homework and figure out if that's something you really want to do.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
Or it wasn't going to be the exact next question. My next question was going to pertain to it, though, which would be, what difference does it make between a citizen and a non-citizen when it comes to these rights and everything? How do you know which one would be more beneficial for you, for example?
I believe there's 4 statuses of citizenship. There is the state citizen, or the United States federal citizen, federal personnel. And I'm trying to find a resource here. There is Okay, for example, there's 4 classes of citizenship in America. Number 1 is like, for example, an Oregonian. They're a state citizen, and they're the highest form on the land by right. And if you're a state citizen, you own your land, which is your home. It's not property, it's land. And you have the right to do all except violate another man's rights, or inhabit land that is private, land that is not owned by the United States. Property is that which one has a right to, not ownership of. Property tax is different than a land tax. The second class is a resident, which means resident alien. Every time you hear the word resident, it means resident alien. In other words, an alien that is residing on the land by permission. A privilege, in other words. All state licenses require proof of residency. And when you take a license, you waive rights held by the Oregonian. The first one I talked about, you waive those rights. So the third is a United States citizen of right of 1790 to 1868, a pre-14th Amendment citizen. And the fourth is a 14th Amendment state citizen from 1868 to the present, which is inferior to all of the ones I've covered previously. That's what everybody typically is. A citizen, subject of a city. City is a body politic, which is a unified group of people. And there are 3 main state distinctions that one should be aware of as well. There's the state, Oregon, and the word state is not capitalized. And this is the land that is within the exterior boundaries of what we call the territory of Oregon. This state term is a noun. The state is presently occupied by Oregonians, which are native by right. The second distinction of a state is state of Oregon, and it's typically styled in all capital letters. That is a created entity, part of the perpetual union created by a chartered permission pursuant to the United States Constitution. The state term is a noun. The state consists of resident aliens. Resident aliens are not classed as native. They reside only by permission and are governed by the federal Congress and state legislative written law. The third distinction of a state is the United States state, which is also a created entity created pursuant to the Declaration of Independence, Articles of Confederation, legally styled as the United States of America, and the Northwest Ordinance, a tool for the Confederacy's needs. So asked if you are a state citizen, I would ask which state.
The interesting thing is when you're growing up and going to school, they don't teach you any of this in any of your school classes that I'm aware of.
No, this is law school.
When you go in and sign up for your license or your voter's registration, they don't tell you what you're doing when you're signing it. They just say, here, sign here. And they give you a little bit of fine print to read. They don't even cover what you're talking about.
Yeah, hey, did you know resident is not a location? It's a class of privilege, a class that state jurisdiction governs entirely. So you can live in Oregon as a native or as a resident. A native is by right, and a resident is of permission. Natives are governed by the people's state of law. Residents are governed by the state entities that the native people allow to operate on the same land. A resident is subject to U.S. state written law, all of it. A native is subject to God's law, which is what I believe in, do no harm.
So you need to know what your status is in order to know what your defense is in a court of law.
Oh, definitely. So a resident will do business as a privilege of the state. A native does business by grant or permission of God, not from this. We created the state.
Well, isn't that kind of like if you decide to be a native of a state, you also align yourself to that God in the process?
Well, to me, it doesn't matter who your God is, as long as you recognize that it's a higher authority or a higher power than the state is, and that the state is not a God.
No, but does the state say that they represent God, maybe indirectly.
Well, they do say that they trust in God, and that's totally different because they're, the federal rules of evidence. I think rule number 17 says that the rules are just guides. You don't even have to follow the rules. They're just guides. But people or the officers of government have to adhere to the rules because that's their procedure. They have no option.
And they got that in that position by obtaining employment in that particular field.
Yeah. If I were to go into Walmart and just walk around, and a Walmart supervisor came up to me and told me that I had to start mopping the floor, and I didn't work there, what would be wrong with that scenario?
Right, and if you did work there,
there's no agreement. Yeah, there's no agreement, and especially if they said, "Well, we're going to reprimand you if you don't start mopping the floor right now." How does that even make sense? That's what the government does. I'm not employed by the state or by the government.
And therein lies your defense in the courtroom when you get in there. Are you in agreement with that state, or are you not in agreement with that state?
Well, am I employed by that state? And if I'm employed by that state, I need you to produce records of my compensation because I don't work without getting paid. So if they're trying to compel you to perform, do you work for free?
Have you actually ever used this defense and had it work for you?
I have a case that I did in 2012. I used that defense, and it's currently on appeal, and it looks like we're going to have a new trial. So I'm going to have another chance, another swing, another crack at this.
So they're still kind of fighting you on it.
Oh, yeah. They're fighting tooth and nail the whole way, and they violated my rights, and they kidnapped me when I went to court. This
is the second time during the show you said kidnapped. The first time you said they stole your car, too. I meant to elaborate on that. What you're referring to is when they incarcerated you and when they impounded your car.
Yeah, most people would call it impounding the car, but they have no right to my private property.
But because they have no right, in your case it was kidnapping and stealing.
Yeah, serious.
And this is how you tell them, this is what you accuse them of when you're in the courtroom, I take it.
Well, I try not to make accusations or statements because anything, just like they tell you, anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. So to get around that, I don't argue. There's one way to win an argument is by not arguing. So I use very carefully crafted questions and non-rebuttable statements. A non-rebuttable statement is something like, I believe, I think, it is my opinion. Because who is anybody to tell you what you think? If I say something like the car is red and somebody says, no, it's not, it's crimson, I could say, I believe the car is red, and nobody can rebut that. You can't argue with what I believe, what I think.
You can't be right about an opinion, in other words.
Yeah. And if there's a statement I want to make, I will phrase it in the form of a question. Just like
kind of like when they took my car. Isn't that really like stealing since I'm not in agreement with the state? Something to that effect?
Exactly. And if you claim to have an interest in my car, you need to be paying for the upkeep because I'm the one that's been taking care of this thing that you claim you own the whole time.
And you can say things like that in court and it'll make a difference?
Well, in court, anybody that wants to say anything, they need to be on the stand, including the district attorney. He can't enter hearsay evidence claiming things that I've done without him being under penalty of perjury on the stand because I want it to mean something.
So, and you're allowed to demand that or request that, I take it?
I require it.
Require it, okay.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to terminology.
Yes.
Guy, we ran out of time. They're already starting the music up on us. Maybe we ought to get together and do this again since we needed more time.
Yeah, definitely. It's a real deep subject, so I could go on forever.
Alrighty. Well, Trent, I want to thank you for coming. It's been a pleasure having you. Guys, don't forget to come see me this Saturday to talk about energy and ley lines over at talknowradio.net. Y'all have a good one, and I'm going to leave y'all over to break time music till the next host comes in. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you, Trent.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
listening to Revolution Radio.
These guys are hammers. And to hammers, everything looks like nails.
I heard that.
You were meant to. So you see something that's important, you call it out, and we'll make it happen.
Okay. Mother Nature is a serial killer. No one's better, more creative. Like all serial killers, she can't help the urge to want to get caught. And what good are all those brilliant crimes if no one takes the credit? So she leaves crumbs. Now the hard part is seeing the crumbs for the clues they are. Sometimes the thing you thought was the most brutal aspect turns out to be the chink in its armor. And she loves disguising her weaknesses as strengths.
If you can fight, fight.
Head north if you can. Hello? Is there anyone out there hearing this?
Help each other.
Mexico City has been declared